how have you changed your approach to making hires, right? And screening people, interviewing people when you can't meet them in person? I know that, my team and I have had to change that dramatically on the search side, of course. But what can you tell us about that? And then anything you can, maybe any advice you can give to those out there that are looking to maybe make a job change about how they can, perform well in this all virtual interviewing environment?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if I'm an expert on this subject, but I think the one thing, that we have experienced ourselves is that a single interview on a Zoom chat is not sufficient for understanding and for evaluating talent and being able to really truly understand kind of how they're going to operate and so forth. So not only do we have kind of a multiple interviewee type situation that we imply when we're looking for new hires, but we also all have multiple chats with interview candidates. And I think the important thing about that is that we set that expectation up front, that we're having these multiple chats, not because we're putting you through the ringer or we're questioning your candidacy, but rather just because we think it's a more natural way of working. We're going to be talking to each other every day if we end up working together. And so having the ability to kind of have multiple connection points has been, I think, really important for us. Aside from that, I think we've always embraced what we call, the growth mindset at HP. If you haven't read, I think it's Carol Drucker's book on the growth mindset. It's a really good way of thinking through not just how we ourselves should operate in an organization, but also how we should hire employees. So we look for people who are really not so caught up in a particular role at a particular time in a particular place, but rather really are looking to become a part of an organization which may at some point throw them into a role that they're not aware of. And I think, I don't know about your organizations, but that's certainly been something that I've experienced in all of the places I've worked is we reorg a lot. And, you could look at that as a downside, or you could look at that as a company who's willing to embrace change and adapt to the circumstances. I've had 3 different roles since I've been at HP in 3 years. And the role that I got hired for was not the role that I had the day I walked into HP. And so being able to embrace that type of chaos, as it may be in some cases, but also thoughtful, strategic chaos is, I think, something we look for.
No, that's a great point. It's very, very well said. And I think that's probably one of the biggest changes and trends that we're seeing out there on the search side, the recruiting side as well, is that, certain companies certainly need somebody who is a really deep expert in one particular, vertical, if you will. But for the most part, people have to be adaptable. And as I said earlier on, they can't work in this siloed mentality. So you have to be able to work across departments and speak the language of other parts of the organization, especially the higher up you go, as you might expect, right? And so I think demonstrating that adaptability and that understanding of the full business in an interview setting is really important on the candidate side. And it's important for us also as hiring managers and leaders to ask those questions. Not just say the usual, hey, tell me about yourself, which is the worst possible interview question to ask, but instead, tell me about some times where you had to work across departments. Give me some examples and really kind of speak to that from a behavioral perspective, definitely.